What is up, y'all? Welcome to the VR Ranking Show presented by Fortnite. Drop into Fortnite Chapter 7 now. Adam Kramer, Paige Mendonca here. Final college football playoff rankings. We are finally getting them today. And Adam, there's going to be a lot of fan bases mad. Normally we get one or two fan bases. I feel like we get to have three or four that are pretty mad, and maybe the whole sport is mad today.
Yeah, everybody's going to be mad. I remember doing the show when it was Florida State or Alabama, right?
Yes.
And Florida State fans obviously upset being left out. Miami fans, how we feeling? Notre Dame fans, how we feeling? Alabama fans, how we feeling? BYU fans, Texas fans, Vanderbilt fans. There's a lot of fan bases that feel like they've got a legitimate shot at this. And yet we saw yesterday a lot of interesting things happen in the ACC championship game, in the SEC championship game, things that are going to really tilt this on its side a little bit.
Yeah.
And in a year, by the way, where we're evaluating the future of the playoff.
Yes.
We'll talk about it throughout the show. This will not look the same next year. And what happens today is really going to influence what we do in the future.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about some of the championship games. We do have a bracket from this week. We know that's going to change because of these games. I want to start with the ACC because I feel like that one honestly was the biggest factor of what could potentially happen. We know if Virginia won, they would be in.
Yep.
They obviously lost to Duke. Are Duke fans mad today if they're not in, you know?
Great point. Yes, they will be. So, yeah, Duke almost threw that game away, gets a win in overtime. A 5-loss team wins the ACC, somewhat fitting, perhaps. You're shaking your head. That's a perfect way to cap off the season in the ACC. So you're left with a debate of what do we do with Duke? You and I have talked about Duke all year. Kudos to you, by the way. You picked Duke as a dark horse, maybe not with 5 losses before the season began. So, yes, because Virginia, that was a very smooth entry into the bracket, right? Virginia wins, they're in. That's not the case now. So we're left with Duke versus a James Madison, a group of 5 team.
Yeah.
And we'll see what the committee has to say. Although James Madison last week being ranked, I think the committee told us quite a bit.
Yeah, above Duke. I think what we saw this week on Tuesday was basically the setup for what the committee was going to do, depending on what happened. However, there is conversation around if you were idle. They did say, the committee chair did say, if you were idle, that doesn't mean you're not going to move up or possibly move. So, I mean, that definitely is a direct reference to Miami and Notre Dame. But let's talk about the SEC as well, because maybe not as big of a factor, but it is going to shake things up in terms of seeding.
Yeah, and we went into that game thinking for Alabama, don't get blown out.
Yeah.
Well, they kind of got blown out. They ran for -3 rushing yards. -3, right? This is Alabama we're talking about. So how bad of a loss was that is the question. We watched it. It wasn't great.
Yeah.
It wasn't great. So for Georgia, obviously, we think we know what's going to happen. We think they're going to go up to the number 2 seed. For Alabama, which jumped Notre Dame last week somewhat strategically and surprisingly, they're kind of hanging on for dear life, right? Like if you're an Alabama fan, you're just hoping. And this is the biggest question. And this is a question for Alabama and other conference championship games moving forward. Does playing in your conference championship, does playing an extra game, should it hurt you?
Yep.
And I think many people out there have differing opinions on that.
The committee chair last week said your conference championship can be used as a marker. So how well you play in that game. But what does that even mean? If again, sure, you can evaluate it, but that means it can hurt you. So why would you be playing in them? I think is the larger conversation that we're sort of going to have as the future of the college football playoff will change.
Yes.
But certainly frustrating if they do end up possibly being left out. I don't think that the committee will leave them out, but there's a possibility.
I'll tell you, watching the odds yesterday in terms of who's going to make the playoff, Alabama, it was a roller coaster, and it still is. So then, that is the bubble, right? That conversation, does playing in your conference championship game and losing by 3 scores, we saw that multiple times yesterday, by the way. What does that do for your ranking? We had this conversation with the 4-team. It feels more pronounced now in the 12-team format.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's talk about the Big Ten. Now, Adam, you and I are friends here, so I don't want to make this a big deal, but we did do predictions this week for the Big Ten championship, and one of us picked Indiana to win.
One of us did.
And that person was me. And
that was you.
I feel very proud of Fernando Mendoza. I'm very, very proud of him.
He was very proud in the postgame, by the way. He was hyped. And he might win a Heisman now. Amazing to watch those wide receivers make plays, contested catches down the field. Indiana was an underdog. I thought Ohio State would pull it off. Ohio State's play calling, by the way, Not the greatest, right? Not great. Let's just leave it at that. But Indiana did enough. Mendoza, who started a little rough, got hurt. I mean, it was a weird game for them. I thought, what a way. I mean, the last time Indiana won the Big Ten, the computers didn't exist, right?
So
like computers weren't a thing.
Yeah, you couldn't Google Kirk Cignetti.
You could not Google Kirk Cignetti, but people are Googling him now. I know we're going to rip on maybe the out-of-conference schedule, the early-on schedule, strength of schedule, 45. But it's hard to really take away anything at this point. Beating Oregon, capping it off with a conference win over Ohio State. I mean, what a year.
Yeah. And there's going to be a lot of conversations that include strength of schedule, by the way. And Indiana's not the toughest, but we've proven it and seen it on the field. So I think that's the part that's going to be interesting about this whole debate is where are we using, I don't know, say head-to-head or strength of record, or when is it mattering? And it seems like it's been different for different teams.
Yes, it has been different. And already you're seeing a lot of conversation between Notre Dame and Miami. Of course, we have a head-to-head record. We have to go back to week 1 to see what happens. But as you look through, like, what does that mean? Like, Miami's win is a really good one with Notre Dame, right? So how is the committee going to evaluate that now, finally, because Miami's been chasing the whole way?
Now, I do want to talk about the Big 12. Texas Tech gets the win.
Yes.
We talked about possibly if there was a close game with BYU, would BYU be considered to move up? Because, again, using that phrase that your conference championship could be used as a marker, it could be as a marker to move you up even in a loss. But it seemed like the committee kind of already decided that BYU was not getting in unless they won that game.
Yeah, and then while BYU was competitive for a little while, same thing happened as we saw in the first game, right? And so, you know, obviously an injury to your quarterback in Bear Bachmeier did not look right.
No.
The entire game hurt. They've had a tremendous 2 seasons. And it feels a little weird that they're not, I don't want to say they don't have anything to show for it, but it feels a little weird that they're not going to be in the playoff either way. What is the respect the conference gets? We'll have to see, but you're right. I think BYU fans kind of know how today is going to go. Other fan bases are kind of waiting to hear what's going to happen.
Well, waiting to hear what is going to happen and where they are seated is Texas Tech. We now have a live look in to them waiting patiently to find out where they are at, which is a big deal. Like, I think for them, you made a statement, and I think the narrative all along has certainly been, hey, Texas Tech is good, but they're good in the Big 12. I feel like we've started to get a little bit of a better case for them, having seen them play a team twice that they beat handedly. You know, I think people need to be taking them a little bit more seriously. Look, there they are, waiting to find out where they're at.
They're a little probably bored, right?
They're like, hey, we know we're in.
For them, what a season though.
Yes.
I mean, we've talked so much about the NIL component to them, but you look at the defense, you look at the quarterback, you look at all the components that make them work, and it's just been wildly successful outside of the Arizona State game, where there was injuries and other things like that. They've shown me, and you and I have talked about, that they belong. They're built to compete with the Indianas, the Ohio States, the Georgias of the world.
Yes, incredibly physical. And I think the biggest part for Texas Tech now is that you just get to do it on the big stage. Like, how exciting is that?
Yes. And there again, I don't know how serious other people are going to take them, but I think they should start if they're not already.
In terms of seeding,
yes,
where do you think that they will be today?
So you've got Indiana, we think, at 1, Georgia at 2, Ohio State at 3, and then probably Texas Tech, right?
Really?
Is that what we think is going to happen here? Right?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I would move them up, but I think that's what the committee will do.
Yes, I feel like that's going to be a safe landing spot. Like Ohio State, again, back to the whole, how are we going to penalize teams?
Yes, so, I mean, you have to sort of reward Georgia, and slightly penalize Ohio State.
Yes.
Because there could be a case made that it should be Indiana 1, Ohio State 2.
Correct.
Based on the eye test that the committee is using for other teams.
Yeah,
on the bubble.
Again, how much do conference championships matter, right? Georgia, to me, with the win, is probably going to get the nod. It's an easy thing for the committee to do. We'll have to find out if they actually follow through with it. Conference championships, when we first started the 14 playoff, were kind of integral, right? That was what we talked about in terms of how it was supposed to go. You look at this Georgia team, what I'm impressed with, is how they've played the last 5 weeks.
Yeah.
The Texas game was eye-opening. Mississippi State, obviously beating Alabama after losing to Alabama. I think Gunnar Stockton has played really, really well. They've used their skill talent really well. Ultimately, and pass rush, right? Early in the year, this was a team that couldn't get a pass rush on an opponent. We saw with Bama, again, -3 yards rushing.
Yeah.
Ty Simpson was under duress all night long.
When we did our prediction, I did say I feel like Kirby was going to learn from the very first one, and defensively will figure things out and make sure that he's disruptive regardless. Let's talk about teams that were not in the bracket and were idle this week that maybe have a case. I want to start with Texas because I feel like this is, there's been a lot of talk about SEC bias with these rankings and over the years, but I am very curious your thoughts on Texas's resume, and do you think that they actually have a case, and do you think playing Ohio State early in the season hurt them?
I think they have a case. I don't think they're going to get in.
Yeah.
Steve Sarkisian has been pleading his case for the better part of a week and a half now, 2 weeks, kind of knowing his reality. Playing Ohio State, Texas talking about canceling meaningful out-of-conference games, right? They're not going to do that.
Yeah.
But when you look at their wins, Texas A&M and Oklahoma, I mean, these are some of the best wins that we have in the bracket. The problem is the Florida loss. Almost losing to Kentucky, right? There was a stretch of games there where Arch was figuring it out, and it wasn't necessarily going particularly well. So strength of schedule, like all these things, 3 wins versus top 25, it is a really good resume. But the 3 losses before a conference championship weekend, I think are a problem.
Yeah, I mean, strength of schedule is not going to get you there. If you look at BYU's, it's actually better than Texas's, and they have less losses, and they're still going to be out.
Yes.
Also, the SEC bias thing, and also the playing Ohio State thing. You do have an SEC team that is 10-2 and deserves to be maybe in this conversation more than Texas does.
Yeah, Vanderbilt. Yeah, potentially a Heisman winner in Diego Pavia. I mean,
all right, put that out there.
Yeah, well, it could happen, right? So ultimately, when you look at Vanderbilt and you look at their resume, maybe not the same key wins as Texas, but it's Vanderbilt. They're 10-2. They were trying to schedule a game this week, right?
Yeah.
They wanted to play anybody. So I think for Vanderbilt, obviously it starts with the quarterback, but I think they've proven over the last couple of years they are so much better than that.
Yeah. The fan base that's probably most likely to be upset today is Miami. I do want to just talk about the head-to-head specifically because the committee chair said if Notre Dame and Miami were next to each other, that head-to-head would factor in. Is there something to the reasoning of like, hey, eye test-wise, we've seen Notre Dame get better throughout the year. They've been better the last few weeks of the season. That head-to-head obviously was early in the season, but again, I'm just confused why we wouldn't be using that as something that's been it's been pushed on all of these teams and programs throughout this college football playoff committee run, and it's just killing me. It's killing me.
Well, when you look at the metrics of both of these teams, they're pretty similar, right? In terms of strength of schedule, strength of record,
by one.
All these different things. So I think, yeah, exactly. They like stack up in terms of strength of schedule, like right near each other. I don't understand it, to your point. We have head-to-head as a metric. Notre Dame is a really good win. When we look at the totality of the season, it's hard to argue against Miami. The committee, because of the timing of the releases and where these games happened, as I told you, it's not necessarily who you lose to, it's like when you lose.
Yeah.
So Notre Dame, for the second year in a row, has won a lot of games down the stretch, right? So that has helped them tremendously. And so, but the discord right now is that Miami's got a shot. Let's get BYU out of there. Let's compare ourselves and let's see what happens.
Well, that is frustrating. I mean, I think, sure, you can talk about Notre Dame and Miami. I know the conversation around Alabama. Alabama's probably going to get in. I do think if you're looking at metrics, we've been given these metrics by the College Football Playoff Committee to evaluate these things. If you evaluate BYU by the metrics you're using, that everyone's so harshly arguing these two things, and like you can see, theirs is pretty close, but neither of them played in a conference championship game. I saw in the chat, someone said, force Notre Dame to play in a conference championship game. I've always said that they are never going to Notre Dame is never going to join a conference as long as the College Football Playoff continues to basically reward them for not being in one. and they're doing that if they get in today.
Yeah, are they willing to make that change, though? Like, are we willing to actually make that move down the stretch? Because it would, in my opinion, then we could question what is the committee doing, right? And we've heard a lot of that over the last few weeks. Inconsistencies in the evaluation process. I get that we have a BYU in between, right? And Miami has clawed their way back into it. But when you actually just look at the two resumes, it becomes a little bit harder to defend.
Yeah.
So I'm happy I'm not on the committee, by the way. This would not be an easy decision to make. But again, looking at the criteria, like they've played. And one of the teams won.
It's supposed to matter.
It's supposed to matter.
It's not going to. I will also say this. The college football playoff is going to change next season. We know that. So the deadline actually for the change was last week. It got postponed to after the national championship. And I think part of that reason is because of what we are seeing with the fact that there's maybe 2 group of 5 teams that are going to make this because the ACC champion is not one worthy of the college football playoff.
Correct.
And so the conversation of automatic bids, we talked a lot about conference championship games. Do we move into a situation where we get play-in games? These conference championship games are play-in games for the opportunity to be in there. But do you think it would also be, see, this is what I worry about. We have automatic bids now for the top 5 ranked conference champions. Are we going to get ourselves in a position where like the most deserving teams are not getting in because we have auto bids affiliated with conferences?
Well, I love
the ACC.
I love group of 5 teams being included. However, I don't know if this was in the spirit of what we intended it to be.
Yes.
Right. So the ACC being left out is a really big deal. They're going to change that, right? Conference champions are going to change. We know that ACC is going to change their format. The SEC has been talking about doing it as well for quite a while, right? To turn this maybe into a tournament. So, and I think no matter what happens now, that new reality is real, right?
Yeah.
Like, if Alabama gets left out, then we know that Greg Sankey, who said yesterday that he believes they have 7 teams worthy of the playoff, is going to have something to say about that.
Where do you think that Alabama moves?
Do they slide back at all?
Yeah.
Yes, I think they do. I think they'd move down 1, and then you could slide Notre Dame up, and then ultimately at that point, then I think that's going to be the big change.
That is crazy. Alabama, but again, it's just interesting that like they're not getting punished for.
Well, they might.
losing.
I mean, this is the question, right? And they did not look good. So if the committee wanted to take a stand, they can take a stand, right? This is the moment where the committee can say, hey, we don't believe that they belong in. You didn't do enough.
Let's have a conversation about Duke and James Madison. A lot of people in the chat I see calling for Duke to make the college football playoff as the ACC champion. Do you think there is any justification to, or a possibility that I know they weren't ranked and we know the committee put James Madison ranked. Do you think because of how they played against Virginia, there is a possibility that they could be ranked? You don't think the committee is that brave?
And James Madison played one Power 4 team and lost by a lot. They played Ole Miss and lost by a ton. So if you wanted to look at it and say Duke has 3 to 5 wins better than James Madison's, like I'm here for that. Like we could talk about that. I think the committee last week told you everything that you need to know in that James Madison, we were going to rank them. They didn't play great in their championship game, right? They didn't play great, but I think they did enough ultimately to justify it and say, because if the committee starts putting in a team with 5 losses, what does that say?
Yeah.
What does that say, right? So if you look at it like strength of schedule.
You're leaving out teams that played in their conference championship game.
I'm
not saying this is your choice,
and
by
look,
the way.
Look, 118th in terms of strength of schedule.
Wins and losses versus top 25 teams.
Yeah, this says a lot. And if you're a Duke fan, and if you want to make a case that we should be in, as you look at it side by side, this is pretty telling.
Yeah.
So, but 5 losses, that's the number.
Yeah.
The record to me is
the
biggest one. You know, right? Like, how do you possibly justify that?
Yeah.
So, 118th strength of schedule.
But if they're using the eye test for other teams, would you want?
I'd rather play James
Duke?
Madison.
Okay.
I'd rather play James Madison for sure.
I'm curious what the chat would have to say about that. Chat, tell us who you would rather watch play in this playoff. Because they'd be at 12, so they would play, right? Yes. Okay, so Tulane would be at 11 because they're the higher ranked.
What other movement do you think we'll get? Do you think we'll get anything with Ole Miss?
No. That would be bold. If they were going to do that, they would have done it earlier this week.
Yeah.
Why would you do it after? I don't see any team.
By the way, an interesting story, because we were talking about them a lot, and now we're not talking about them at all.
Yeah.
Being able to keep the staff together is huge, right? Especially offensively, defensively. They make Pete Golding the full-time coach, which I think is a smart move, at least for this year, to keep things together. What do you think the impact is without Lane? Do you think there is a big one?
I don't know that there's a big drop-off, and I honestly think, we've seen the fallout from him leaving.
Yes.
And I think there's a chip on this team's shoulders because of the fact that he left. Yeah. We know that there has been some commentary from the players saying, they maybe didn't necessarily want him to be coaching like he had said, I wanted to coach through the end of this season. But I don't know. I think they have a chip on their shoulder. I think they're more than worthy of being in this playoff and can win a game. But sure, could it cause a distraction? Maybe, but I don't think so. I think they'll be able to at least win the first round game.
A team that benefits from not playing in their championship game, by the way. Right, when you look at the various tiebreakers, another thing is tiebreakers. Miami not in the ACC championship game, and that hurt them tremendously in that regard.
Yeah, and we will see a rematch most likely in that 11 game, correct? Because Tulane would be the 11 seed there in the bracket.
Yeah, you would think so.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, it's time for the bracket almost here.
I know, we're so close. The bracket is coming. We're going to find out the final bracket, the rankings. Any parting, before we get the final ones, any big predictions for what could potentially happen here?
No, I truly, when we did this with Florida State and Alabama, right, we had this kind of thought that it was going to go the way that it did. Mm-hmm. I'm curious but this committee has not necessarily operated consistently or with rationale.
Yeah, that's true.
So
more than any other.
Even watching the playoff, the odds market and everything, I think this is going to be a little bit different. I think there's a level of unpredictability here for sure going into it, because I don't think we know what the committee is going to do. I really don't. And so if you're a Miami fan waiting for that jump, right, which would be the most interesting thing for me, I think it's possible, because this committee has not been consistent throughout.
Oh, man. I feel like this is probably going to be one of the more dramatic reveals that we will get of these. Like you said, when we were here last time, when Florida State was left out, and that was crazy.
Yeah.
We didn't think that this iteration of the playoff would cause this many problems. No. But hopefully the rankings are coming soon. We will get those to you guys as soon as we have them, so we are able to sort of walk through them, let you guys know the matchups, reveal the full bracket, because, of course, the rankings don't equal you being in the same spot in the bracket. So we are going to get those rolling here in a sec. We'll see where we're at. Hey, number one, I bet you it's Indiana.
Yeah, that's pretty much the surest of things. And then that middle portion of the, right, when we talk about, 5, 6, and 7, and there we go.
Hey, look at that.
We have a bracket,
one for
or at least
one.
the start of one. So, again, as a reminder, top 4 seeds get a bye.
Yes.
So Indiana will get a bye.
Yeah, and new this year is not that it's the top 4 conference champions, which...
What a season.
Yeah.
I know it was assumed that they would be in and that they would have a bye, but still just incredible to see Kurt Signetti. I was going through their 2023 schedule. I mean, they lost a lot of football games.
Yeah.
They lost a lot. To do this in 2 years, unbelievable.
Yeah, and I will say, Indiana, in terms of turnaround, we talk a lot about transfer portal, NIL, all of those things. I got to tell you, this is one of the more impressive turnarounds. There's a lot that has to go right for using NIL and transfer portal to get you to the college football playoff, but is one thing. Number 1 team in the country. 2, okay.
Wow.
You know what? The committee agreed with us that they should be 1 and 2.
I am a little surprised by this. I don't know if it's the biggest deal, But are we saying conference championship games don't matter?
Yeah, are we now
Right?
officially saying that?
Are we
So
saying-
what? All right, this feels like a bold.
Yeah, it is. So what? Georgia was dominating over a top 10 team,
Yeah.
and still Ohio State gets the nod. I know we're waiting on the bubble, and that's what's the most interesting. But to me, this is a really telling thing about the format going forward. It also could tell you a little bit about what they might do with Alabama, right? The fact that they were able to look past what is a really good loss. We'll see consistency-wise, but if I'm an Alabama fan, this is good news.
Yeah.
Do you feel that way, or am I looking too deep into this thing?
No, I think you're right. But also credit to the Big Ten for them being able to evaluate that those are the two best teams in the country.
And there's Georgia.
Georgia at 3.
So that is not shocking. And then, of course, we'll get to, we think, Texas Tech at 4. So what's interesting also about this, when you think of the actual bracket, is look at that side of the bracket, right? Now we can start to play into Georgia and Ohio State.
Yeah.
And I believe they would play in Atlanta, right? I think that is where they would possibly meet. So, something to think about moving forward eventually down the line. But that side of the bracket, that feels like a potential collision course.
Yeah. All right.
Wow.
I'm assuming we're getting Texas Tech at 4.
Yes. And there you go. What a year.
But it's also like, dang, okay, so Texas Tech won pretty convincingly. And, all right, here's their reaction to them being the number 4 seed. All right, there we go.
Good for
They're
them.
in, they get a bye.
Good for them. I will say Texas Tech as a whole represents what can happen if you have resources and you know what to use them.
Well, and you know how to properly use them. You can't just throw, that's the other thing. We've been talking about Texas Tech quite a bit. You cannot just throw resources at something and expect it to work. There's a lot of things that go into this, and I will say their general manager being able to watch film all season long and let Coach McGuire just focus on the coaching part really does help.
Yeah, they run it like an NFL team does.
Yes.
Right? There's like a delineation of
not in the way that they're doing in Chapel Hill, but in a very different.
Yes, very different. See, he got into the playoff show.
Yeah, exactly. We had to drop in there.
All right, so I would assume next up we will start to get into the 5. There we go.
Oregon.
Well, on time. So Oregon, number 5. With not a game to play, seemed like a no-brainer there. It sets up a really interesting potential second round matchup, obviously.
Yes.
But they'll host a playoff game. So this is the other key part of this format. You don't get a bye, fine. We saw last year teams that were in this hosting games did really well.
Yeah. And I will say, Oregon, a team that may be really happy about the fact that they are not in the bye situation this year. Maybe you're okay with not having to deal with that.
Yeah.
Because it didn't maybe go as planned last time.
For sure. Yeah, no, I mean, it's kind of like the same thing we do in baseball and all these different playoffs. Like, what's the best way to like prolong your season?
Yeah.
Hosting a game in Oregon is a nice way to start.
Yeah. One of the toughest places in college football to play. All right, we got Ole Miss at 6.
So potential rematch in the second round, right? If Ole Miss can get there. But I mean, what a season. I know, again, lost in the Lane drama and all of the Lane conversation is the fact that Ole Miss did the thing. They did it on offense, they did it on defense. They switched quarterbacks. They were competitive in big games.
Yeah.
They obviously did it with points. I know the whole last couple of weeks really is kind of odd.
Yeah.
But you got to enjoy this. If you're an Ole Miss fan, in a playoff game at the Grove, not too shabby. Just saying.
Home playoff games, by the way, the best part of this iteration of the college football playoff.
Absolutely. There are things that we need to change. I don't believe that is one of them.
No, I mean, maybe more games on campuses,
Yeah, so far.
So far, pretty chalk.
Except for Ohio State. Ohio State is a bit of a surprise.
All right. Yeah, I think.
Well, I'm surprised. Well, and there's Texas A&M.
Yep.
So Texas A&M was in that bye situation for much of the year. And then, of course, the loss to Texas changed it. But this is a team we really haven't had to talk about because they're not on the bubble. They're really good. They can get after the quarterback. Their quarterback can make plays, obviously, both through the air and with his legs. Great skill, talent, a threat to win it all.
Yeah, absolutely. and they play in the SEC, so the SEC bias maybe there, you know?
Oh, you're just saying?
I'm just saying. I'm just looking at the chat, and you guys, we love the chat every single week when we do these shows because they keep it real. Speaking of the SEC.
Oklahoma.
So let's talk about Oklahoma for a sec. Sure, they have been successful. They also played some games without their starting quarterback. A lot of people saying that you're really not worthy in terms of like eye test. Do you buy into that? I mean, like, this is a team that we've seen play through one of the toughest schedules in all of college football and have an injury to their quarterback and still be there. I mean, this is best case scenario for you as an Oklahoma fan.
Yeah, you're hosting a playoff game.
Yeah.
Look, the LSU game was ugly, right? There's been some ugly moments for them, so it's hard to get around that. That being said, they've deserved it. We talked about the gauntlet all year long with Oklahoma, so I don't think you could leave them out. But the eye test you speak of, it hasn't exactly been great, right? Like, it hasn't. Who cares? They did the thing. They won the games they needed to.
Well, that's the thing. They've proven it, which applies to Oklahoma, but I guess maybe not Miami. We'll find out. We will see what the comparison is.
Now,
here's where we have some fun.
Yeah, where do you go next here? Like, where's the entry here for the committee?
Well, it would be if you're keeping Alabama at 9.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So.
Yeah.
That game did not matter.
Yeah, they basically, with the setup of Georgia being there.
That game did not matter.
So, yeah, there's no reward either because, I mean, Georgia, again, would have been rewarded.
So we get a rematch. Oklahoma beat Alabama. People are not going to be happy about this.
Yes, and by the way, there is no reseeding. So if, however this shows up is how it stays, even if there's the same conference. But wow, are people going to be mad about this Alabama?
By the way, Oklahoma's going to be licking its chops given what we just saw yesterday from the Alabama offense in terms of matchups. So, so far with Ohio State, with Alabama, the committee has basically said that conference championship games just do not matter, right?
Yeah.
And Alabama has been on now the favorable side of a couple of playoff decisions here over the last few years.
Yeah, this is, I mean, I'm looking at the chat, and if you're an Alabama fan, you're pretty happy with this. But if you are not, if you're any other fan base, you are not thrilled about this.
Yeah, and also a team with 3 losses now is getting in.
Yeah.
So it's kind of opened the door.
And of course, it's Alabama.
Of course, yeah. I mean, that kind of seems fitting. So, okay.
Negative rushing yards, by the way, in the chat. Love it.
Negative 3 rushing yards, and that did it. So now I think the drama turns to Miami, Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Right? That is where the drama turns to.
Because if it doesn't matter, then BYU is still going to be between.
Oh, they did the thing. They did the thing.
Which means that they moved BYU down for losing to Texas Tech. So that's weird because they weren't using any. Wow.
All right. So the conversation this week was if they're sitting side by side,
yes,
Miami's going to jump Notre Dame.
So
I have a hard time with that logic, by the way. I get it.
Wait, what are they?
So Miami is in.
Yeah, and then there's 2.
Holy cow. All right, now let's talk about this Miami team, too, because...
Wait, but again, hold on 1 second. So that would mean, I want to see what's at 11, because they said the flip would happen if they were side by side.
Well, here's this resume first, because we think this is what
I mean, look, I agree in the sense that, like, you have to use head-to-head as the final marker, but wow.
I'm stunned in the
Someone
way
just
that...
said Notre Dame getting ripped off again. When has Notre Dame ever been ripped off? They've been the beneficiary of not playing in a conference for so long. And this isn't going to force them into a conference. But again, if you play in a conference championship game or you win the head-to-head, you get in. That's so crazy. So they had to have moved BYU down. I need to know if BYU
the full puzzle is coming.
Yeah.
Now, as for this Miami team, I think built somewhat similar to Texas Tech. Great in the trenches, quarterback that can make plays. They did have some slip-ups. Lost to SMU, lost to Louisville, 2 8-win teams. Mario Cristobal, I think, in games sometimes can do some interesting things. But they are loaded with talent. That is I don't think A&M is thrilled about that. I mean, that's a roster oozing with potential. And that little portion of the bracket, if you will, is
a doozy.
Is a doozy. Interesting to see what a point spread of Miami, Texas A&M is going to be. A&M will be favored, but I'm curious to see what it looks like. Wow.
I need to know if it was, because we assumed that the committee, because they were not next to each other on Tuesday, they didn't factor in the head-to-head, was sort of the conversation. So they didn't move Georgia and they didn't move Alabama based on their conference championship game. And they didn't, move Texas Tech up. They didn't punish Ohio State really outside of the fact that they lost, obviously, and swapped places. I need to know if they moved BYU down. Like, I need to know. Because this is what I mean by, like, we're using a certain rules for a certain teams and not all teams. But did they just decide, okay, BYU is still going to be at 11, and it didn't matter? Okay, so Tulane is the 20th team. They're not going to show us.
Tulane
is in. So they will,
So we get a rematch there. Tulane's going to be a huge underdog. Great season. We're talking before, forced 5 turnovers in that conference championship game against the best offense in the country. They can score. They're balanced. However, we saw this game once, and it didn't go particularly well. But Ole Miss obviously has got a lot of moving parts right now.
Now I'm curious if the committee is bold enough to rank Duke above James Madison.
Well,
nothing is off the table.
Nothing is off the table. That is a really interesting move, and talked about the betting market for these playoff decisions heading into today. I mean, Miami was a significant underdog.
James Madison, okay. So
all right, so James Madison.
Over Duke.
Yes, so James Madison in at 12, 2 group of 5 teams in. Miami jumps Notre Dame, catches them at the wire. Look, James Madison has had a tremendous run of success here over the last 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
Don't want to take anything away from them. However, that point spread will probably be 3 touchdowns, I would imagine. And we'll see what they can do. We've seen Liberty in a situation go to Oregon, not fare particularly well. Great season, great team. Congrats to them. We'll get to the game itself. In the moment, is that they found their way in and they needed a lot of help to find their way in. So kudos.
Yeah, I'm kind of in shock a bit about the Miami move. I need to see what 11 and 12 looks like so we know where Notre Dame's actually ranked.
Yeah, okay, so the rankings too, you're right. James Madison moved up 1. Where does Duke fall into this conversation? How close were they would be a really
Watch them be
interesting
ranked
thing.
25th.
Yeah, so...
I'm going to guess that Notre Dame...
Oh, yeah.
For them to have made it, like the 11-12 for me is very fascinating because if, in fact, yes, they move BYU down, which...
So you're going to move BYU down, but you're going to keep Alabama the same.
That to me is...
I get it. It was a larger blowout, but was it all that different of a game?
No.
Was it? Consistency with the committee is certainly something that I think we really have lacked in this go-around. And I think the format and the number of teams is also something now is going to be taken to task pretty heavily. If you're Alabama, though, you're the SEC, you're thrilled.
Yeah, if I'm the Big 12, I'm pretty irritated that we're only getting 1 team in, considering the season between BYU and Texas Tech. So in terms of snubs, I think BYU is amongst the tops.
Well, I can't help but think of last year, too, and group these two together. Yeah. I know that's not what we're doing today. We're talking about the culmination of 1 season. But for BYU, it's like Groundhog Day, right? Yeah. And so is it the strength of the conference that the committee didn't like? Probably, right? Well, what is it, right? So this is a team that I think showed a lot. And, just unfortunately on the outside looking in once again.
Let's talk about Notre Dame. By the way, yeah, strength of schedule is 35th. Strength of record, I believe, was like 6th.
It's tough, too, because they just ran into a monster in Texas Tech.
Yeah.
Right? 2 losses, lost to them both. Very similar games both times. Just don't have the front to keep up. But that was it. Other than that, I thought it was a very competitive year, obviously. And, you would argue BYU fans feel like they deserve a little bit more.
Notre Dame. Clearly, lots of Notre Dame fans are going to feel like this is a snub. I know the athletic director said you don't win like seasons at the start. So making reference to the fact that their head-to-head was at the start of the season, do you feel like Notre Dame got snubbed, or do you think it's fair that they got left out of this based on what we won the head-to-head into the conference championship situation, even though I don't think that really factored into this?
No, I don't either, because we've kind of entered that world for so many that are in conferences.
Yeah.
This is the part, if you want to state the case for both, when you look at these resumes, right? Strength of schedules are very, very close. Best wins comparable. The difference in that best wins is the obvious one, right? Like, that is the kicker.
Yeah.
And I know it was 3 months ago plus, right? Notre Dame is better. CJ Carr is better. You know, all of these things are true. And if you're a Notre Dame fan and you feel like you got, you know, wronged here, I get the case. But the results should matter.
Yeah.
Right? The individual results should matter. So in this individual conversation, it feels like the right call to make. I'm just surprised after all of that, the committee made it.
I also think it's the right call. I do want to point out, too, that the College Football Playoff Committee uses their wins against comparable opponents.
Yeah.
But it's not margin of victory. It specifically says in there they don't use margin of victory, even though 3 out of the 4 would have been Miami beat them by a larger margin. But what are you using them for?
By the way, you talked about idle teams. Yeah. Boise State, who Notre Dame beat, won its conference this week, right? So, like, that could have been used as ammunition for Notre Dame if you wanted to use it. I wonder also, by the way, Paige, like, the committee has been listening to all of this. They do. This is a human beings. It's not the BCS.
Yeah.
I might be for letting a computer program figure this out, just saying. But the committee has been listening to this, and there's been a very strong campaign to get Miami in this position. I can't help but wonder how much of a factor that played.
Yeah. This is crazy. I know we briefly talked about these teams, but are there any other teams that you think, after seeing how the committee has evaluated these teams that are in the top 12, any teams that would say, hey, you used this metric or you used this eye test to evaluate, should we have been in? Should we have had a case?
I feel like the bubble does stop here.
Yeah.
But I think if Texas, in terms of clearly valuing strength of schedule, clearly valuing good losses, which the Ohio State loss, clearly number 2 team, is a really good loss. That was a theme we had all year, have good losses. It's also what propelled Notre Dame at the time into the playoff. So I think Texas is the tip. But what are you going to do? You're going to bump them above? Like, it feels like they're probably at their ceiling, yet it's hard not to look at the resume and say, wow, it wasn't always linear, right? There were times this Texas season where things didn't look great. The resume is pretty solid, but I'd have a hard time putting them into this mix.
Yeah.
Then again, Alabama, 3 losses, squarely in.
Yeah. Played in their conference championship game. I guess that gives them the credit. Also, the teams they beat and how they beat them, I'm sure, play a factor. So let's look at 1 and 2 here. A nod to the Big Ten. I know we've talked SEC bias quite a bit, at least the chat has. But this is, when you look at that game that we watched last night.
Yeah.
I mean, these are the 2 best teams in the country, and just a joy to watch in terms of games. But are you a little annoyed if you're Ohio State, in the sense that, like, some things didn't matter? I feel like you had no choice but to move Indiana over them. But Ohio State still very much, like, you want your seeding to be the best possible. I don't know that it really gives you the edge. I don't know that it gives you much of an edge.
We see with them last year, it didn't matter. Right?
Yeah.
And I would argue they're still they're obviously one of the most talented teams, maybe the most talented team. It's interesting, you see Jeremiah Smith, who had an enormous game for them, and yet they didn't score.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so it was, I wonder if Brian Hartline, there was a lot going on with Ohio State, obviously, in the last week. You wonder how that impacted it. Strength of schedule, though, again, if you want to talk about 2 versus 3, it's kind of an interesting metric that they were still going to keep them there. Close loss against now Indiana, number 1 team. It's going to take you some time to get used to saying that.
Yes.
Appropriately so. They're really, really good. A game against Georgia, potentially, although they got, to get through a really good team first. Ohio State maybe benefited last year in terms of bracket. This is tough, right?
Yeah.
This is brutal when you look at who they have to go up against.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of Ohio State, House of Highlights teamed up with the Fortnite to bring the battle bus to the shoe. Caleb Downs and Carnell Tate got to surf into Chapter 7 on their home field before they lock in for a playoff run. Shout out to Fortnite for making this happen. It is going to take some serious getting used to that Ohio State's not the #1 team in the country right now, but those are two excellent players that I'm sure we'll hear a lot from during the college football playoff. Let's look at matchups now, because now we get to have a little fun. We've been playing these, what we call reindeer games, all year long of these games, and we've got some great matchups. Out of the first round games, which one are you most excited to watch?
Miami, Texas A&M now is fascinating.
Yes.
Because Miami's got juice, right? Miami's got new life. They're in. And in a one-game scenario, I feel like they could beat just about anybody. And Texas A&M, whether it was Arkansas, there was close games for this A&M team. So the ceiling for them is enormously high, and yet they may be vulnerable. And we saw with Texas, right, what a good defense could do. Well, Miami physically can keep up with A&M, but obviously having to play at A&M is no peach either.
Yeah.
So to me, that's the one that jumps off first and foremost.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a great game. I think a rematch of Alabama-Oklahoma is going to be interesting. To your point, maybe defensively, Brent Venables is, an X's and O's guy. He is a football dude. He probably watched that and was like, we're ready. Defensively,
what's
we are
the
ready.
over-under in this? Like 43 points, right? Like this is going to be, and Oklahoma played that type of game in their first one and played it really, really well. So I think if you're the Sooners, although it hasn't looked great for a while, you're up for this.
Yeah. No, absolutely you are. Oregon, James Madison going to Oregon. I think Oregon fans can feel pretty good about this. I hate the thought of O teams overlook teams.
Yeah.
But you gotta really, in this day and age, make sure you're not, because the gap is certainly closed in terms of things. Obviously, Oregon, the much better team here, but you don't want to get into a look-ahead situation.
And I don't think they will.
Yeah.
Dan Lanning is really, really good. They've been in this exact scenario before, right? And they showcased it. But I think they're going to dominate this football game. I don't know other way to put it. Now, we'll see what the point spread is. We'll see what things happen. But there's just such elite, the speed difference, the athlete difference is so robust. I'm already excited about Oregon, Texas Tech. I mean that has no shade for JMU. Look, show us the unbelievable. For college basketball, these are the types of games that really, this 12-5 thing, that make up the bracket and make it fun. So I want a competitive game. It would surprise me if we get one.
Yeah. This isn't college basketball, even though that is the most
common.
It's not. That is the most common upset in all of college basketball during March.
It's a much taller
but
task.
It's definitely more difficult in this sense. But to your point about Oregon, Texas Tech, some of these games that we could end up getting, like a Miami, Ohio State, or a Texas A&M, Ohio State, huge. Even a rematch in the SEC in terms of Ole Miss and Georgia. These games are still good games.
Yeah, and for Ohio State now, it is, can we do this again? Kind of a weird, after the end of last season, there was a feeling that Ryan Day would have to win it all to save his job. Whether that was just us and not internally, right? That was the pressure and the vibe. This is different. Now, they're probably hugely disappointed about not winning the Big Ten, right? There's still elements of Ryan Day's resume that are absent. That being said, this team was playoff ready. They sent more than a dozen players to the draft. They'll be ready for this one by kind of regroup. But I wonder too, Paige, if a little adversity with Indiana was helpful. They did not have a ton of adversity throughout the year. Texas was an ugly football game. Julian Saint's first start. Washington for a little while was close. For them, that helped. Rock bottom last year helped them.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting. This is a rock bottom. You lost to a great football team in a game that you could have, and I'll argue probably should have won, just in terms of play calling wonkiness. So maybe this will help them. Ryan Day is going to try and use that to his advantage. We'll have to see.
Georgia. So yes, we all year have really not been talking about Ohio State and their chances at a national championship. We've kind of just like put them off to the side and go, yes, they're perfectly capable of winning a national championship. This Georgia team and how they played last night, do you think they're a serious threat to win a national championship?
Yeah, I love their quarterback. I loved it even last year when he played Notre Dame, thrown into a unique situation, and his team kind of let him down. There was a bunch of drops. He was hit a ton. He's tough. They went out. They added in the portal at wide receiver. And again, the part of them that has kind of come really, really developed is the pass rush, right? That was the part earlier this year where Georgia really didn't feel like Georgia, right? Giving up lots of points. This is one of Kirby Smart's, probably his best job.
Yeah.
I know he's won big. They've had legendary all-time defenses, all-time defensive players. This team was mortal for a really long time. And they've come together. And again, I think a big part of it is Gunnar Stockton. It's funny, he is not like the biggest prototypical NFL quarterback. But Georgia, as we know, seems to do well with guys like this. They can use him in a variety of ways. And he's been battle tested now.
Yeah.
So great year. And as long as he stays healthy, think about how much was going on at this point last year for Georgia. They don't have those questions at this point.
Yeah. Well, and I do feel like, I know guys don't get upset by saying this, when you've played the schedule they have and the teams that they've played, it does battle test you and prepare you for something like this. It's not an easy task to get through this bracket, whether you like that there's 2 group of 5 teams or not. It's still a challenge to get there and get to the mountaintop and be a national champion.
Georgia's got to feel pretty good about its draw. And that's no shade at Ole Miss. Like, they've done that game before, now they get to do it again without Lane Kiffin, right? And then potentially a matchup with Ohio State, which is going to be tough no matter what. Like, you're going to have to play. It's going to be good on good here real fast in this bracket. But I think in terms of who they'd have to play next, I don't think they're mad at this at all.
Yeah. I'm going to put you on the spot here. If you had to pick between Oregon and Texas Tech, who are you taking in that game?
I would take Texas Tech right now.
Okay.
Sheepishly so. I would want to see what happens. But I think Texas Tech is ready for this. Now, Oregon, in terms of battle tested, my goodness, Indiana game, right? They've played some doozies. Penn State, which looks a little bit different now, obviously months later. But Iowa, they've played some really close, really tough games, a lot like the Big Ten championship we saw last night. You're going to be in those. You got to find a way to win those. So I would say for them, Texas Tech really hasn't had that.
Yeah.
They lost to Arizona State in a close game, backup quarterback, injuries all over the place, but different. So I think the seasoning that Oregon has is going to be an advantage there. And obviously, neutral site helps as well.
Yeah. When we were talking about Indiana before the Big Ten championship, one of the things we talked about that the chat didn't love was that Indiana, with that Penn State game, really proved that they could. Yes, it was a close game and probably shouldn't have been a close game, but they still came out with the win and found a way. And I think that last drive was probably one of the more impressive we've seen all year. I think there is something to it. I know Ohio State and Indiana are 2 teams the chat often likes to say they haven't played anybody. But I think the Big Ten, there are certainly challenges that you have and will go through throughout the year. And I think Ohio State was more in that conversation this year. It flipped from last year. Indiana was certainly in that conversation last year. But I do think that Indiana has certainly proven it deserves to be here.
If you want to be critical of the out-of-conference scheduling, you can.
Yes.
We were before the season began. That's fine. I think they've showcased that they're still the #1 team in college football, and they did that again last night. And what was the key moment in that Penn State game? It was a wideout going up and making a play.
Yeah.
What was the key last night against Ohio State? A couple of contested catches deep downfield. And by the way, their quarterback now is a -2,000 favorite to win the Heisman. So I think if you're going to beat Indiana, I would start by getting your secondary ready.
Yeah.
Because they're gonna attack you, and Mendoza's gonna make some plays with his legs. They are really tough. Ohio State and Indiana, #1, #2 defensive teams in college football heading into yesterday, probably didn't change, and they look the part, right? So that type of game, and potentially with Alabama and Oklahoma next, you're going to get that type of game.
Let's talk about the Heisman a little bit. Do you think it was won last night?
Twitter, of course, is maybe sometimes a terrible thermometer for things.
Yes.
But the odds to me were yes. And Diego Pavia is the other potential candidate.
Yes.
Jeremiah Love, I think, should be deserving. Julian Sayin had a really great year. If he wins that game, maybe it's different. I think Diego's going to get a lot of love. I know they're left on the outside looking in, probably at number 14, we would assume, in the rankings when the rest of them come out. We asked, what does a conference championship mean to the committee? What does a conference championship mean to the voters? So Diego, of course, was idle. Vanderbilt tried to schedule
they
another
wanted the game. They did.
And I think a lot of people, in terms of his play style and how Pavia played down the stretch, which was an incredible last 4 to 6 weeks of the season, I think it's going to be a really, really enticing option. I think the safe choice for voters, I'm not a voter, they probably never will be, they wouldn't want that, would be Mendoza, right?
Yeah.
So very different, very, very different resumes.
Yeah.
This was the Johnny Manziel wow factor, right? There's no other way. I mean, he was at the UFC fight last night, right? Like he is on the Heisman tour. Meanwhile, here you look at the numbers statistically. You look at this play that you alluded to.
Yes.
I mean, plays last night. He had his Heisman moment last night, right?
Yeah.
That's big.
To beat that, to go up against that defense and get that win. I mean, I know Ohio State hurt themselves in many ways, but I think Fernando Mendoza is very deserving. I'm also curious if the Pavia discussion would have been different if Ohio State won last night. So, like, if we were just talking about Julian Sayin and Fernando Mendoza was not the winner of that game, do you think that Diego Pavia would be almost like a non-factor? And because the quarterback of Ohio State was the winner, he would have probably been the favorite?
I think that, and he made some great plays last night too, by the way.
Yes.
And I said earlier this season that he's going to win a Heisman at some point. I'm going to stick to that, by the way. I think he's really, really good. Under duress quite a bit. I think the winner of that game would have been in line. Sayin had his moments, but Mendoza was able to create, right? But look at this, first-year starter. Think about Will Howard, what he meant to this team. Last year, they go to Alabama, they get him, they let him wait, and he was, look at that completion percentage. Unbelievable for his first full year. Going back this season to Texas, right?
Yeah.
They were very, very careful with him.
Yeah.
They had the handcuffs on. They wouldn't let him do much. As the season progressed, oh, by the way, it doesn't hurt to have Jeremiah Smith and Tate throwing to you. But as the season progressed, he played well. One other additional Ohio State thought, they ran the ball pretty well yesterday. They need to probably do that more to take some pressure off the rest of the pieces.
Yes. I think a few weeks ago when there were injuries, receiver-wise, they sort of made that switch and focused on that. I think that will benefit them in the long run to have a little bit more of a dynamic offense in that sense. I will also give you credit. I did shade you for taking Ohio State in the game, and I picked Indiana. I will give you credit. You did say at some point in his college football career that Julian Sayin would likely win a Heisman. So maybe this next weekend, maybe not.
I'm just excited about this bracket because now we're connecting the dots.
Yeah.
And I'm very interested to see the rest of the rankings and how that translates, because is it going to go to form? What other movement? Where did Duke land? Was it a close conversation? Where was Vanderbilt? Where was Texas? What were the other surprises along the way?
Yeah, and we'll hopefully get the full rankings here in a little bit. It usually takes a while for us to get the full rankings, which drives me crazy because, to your point, we would like to know how tough these conversations were. Was Duke at 25? Did they even consider putting them over? You know, we did in fact get the BYU slip a little, so we have that information to know where that conversation was. But I think this is the last of the verbiage around the college football playoff top five ranked conference champions. I think that's it. I think we're gonna have to figure out a better way to get teams into this.
As we look at Miami here, I do wonder if I love doing the weekly shows. We get to talk about it every week. It's great conversation and we figure things out. Does it hurt the committee by doing the weekly shows though? Right? Because trying to evaluate a season before you have all of the evaluations, like a Miami, where it's coming off losses, and we know recency bias matters. So are these weekly releases that are just really a way to engage people, fan bases, do they hurt the committee's credibility along the way?
Well, no, I think that it allows us to hold them accountable for this stuff. So there's going to be a change in this because of the inconsistency from this year. I think the whole point is when we do start it, I want to say
Halloween-ish.
10 weeks into the season, 12 weeks.
Yeah.
So we do wait a little bit of time to get a good amount of their resume over with and be able to see them actually play. But that's the whole point is like, how much do games at the beginning of the year matter? I mean, we were having that conversation in the head-to-head, but I think it allows us to hold them accountable. I think, to your point, this is not their best work. And they did stay within the parameters in terms of having Tulane and James Madison in, but, you know, there are a lot of things that are going to have to shift with how this bracket is end up being made, and whether that's automatic qualifiers. I mean, we can speak a little to, you know, the things that have been thrown out there where if they expand this and the field goes to 16, then we do have play-in games instead of conference championships maybe. And there are automatic bids for a certain number of teams, not just your conference champion, that would allow you to be in this. Because I do think there is at some point going to be a change in how many teams are let into this. And I think it's going to be next year.
Well, and net would have been a good time for Texas, which is locked in here at number 13. I understand. And then there's Vandy. So kind of as expected. So
head-to-head mattering, obviously.
It's interesting too, right? 2 seasons. There's Utah, who, you know, was walking a tightrope here for a while.
Yeah.
You know, Texas and Vandy are very different. Texas came in as the number 1 overall seed, lost. Arch struggled. The team struggled. They found their way. Vandy had one of its greatest seasons ever.
Yeah.
Right? Both are left with nothing to show for it.
Yeah.
Bowl game. Pretty good bowl game. So there's your Arizona.
Arizona Wildcats.
Yeah.
Go
All
Cats.
right. So Virginia for playing. And I am interested to see what we get at 25. Houston, Iowa's going to be in here, I believe. 22, 23.
Georgia Tech.
Yeah, talk about the winding road of the ACC.
Oh, man.
Georgia Tech for a while looked like a lock. The other thing, there's Iowa.
Okay, did they rank Duke or no?
Did they rank Duke?
Did they give them credit?
No. North Texas. All right. So in looking at this too.
They said your 5 losses, we are not even.
And I don't blame them, I guess, when you look at it, even though we were looking to make a case for it.
Yeah.
Is tiebreakers, right? The ACC is going to go back, and if conference championship exists, they're going to redo it because Miami, under other conferences' rules, would have been, I guess Miami doesn't matter now. The ACC got their way, but not in the fashion that they would have wanted. It's probably a long night for the ACC folk.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And also we did away with divisions because that was keeping some teams from being able to get in during the 4-team playoff, most notably Penn State. But yeah, there's going to have to be some reorganizing of those tiebreakers and maybe some shuffling around of how you get to your conference championship.
It's complicated. The season's already really long. The calendar's gotten a lot longer. Some of the options that we've heard is maybe the number 1 team in your conference is in, and then you kind of have a little mini play-in bracket, at least for, you know, the Big Ten and the SEC. I will say realignment has really not helped this conversation. We can have issues with the committee. We can have issues with the way that we crown a champion, size of it, et cetera.
Yeah.
It's a mess now that we don't have divisions anymore. And so these tiebreakers are really, really weird.
Yeah.
And because you have so many teams, Ole Miss, right, when you looked at the strength of schedule for Ole Miss, it was, I think, like in the 40s. Mm-hmm. They had a really favorable path. They're a great team. They had a favorable path, too. You're going to have that year over year for these teams.
Well, and I'm curious and we've talked about this a lot actually on our podcast, which is, do conferences start looking at who's the best in their conference, the best teams, and start factoring that into schedules? Because, I mean, there's a team this year, sorry, Michigan fans, not to throw shade, but their schedule was pretty manageable, even if you lost to just Ohio State. And They played Oklahoma in a non-conference game. You had, even if you were a 2-loss team and didn't play in your conference championship, you could have been in the conversation. You know?
How do you jockey this for position now? Sarkisian is saying he doesn't want to play meaningful out of conference. Now he's doing that to posture. I get it, but how do you jockey for position? How do you set yourself up to be relevant in the playoff? And we are going to go to 16, right?
Yeah.
It feels like an inevitability. So what then happens for teams? How do they adjust their schedules? How do conferences rig the deck too? Because the reason we don't have a playoff format for next year is because conferences are trying to align themselves best for a different postseason.
Yeah. I am curious how this affects Notre Dame.
You think they'll do anything differently?
I don't think they're going to. I mean, the committee would have to really change something.
We changed the rules this year with seeding that was favorable for Notre Dame, right? So if you're in the top 4, we've got 2, Big Ten teams with byes with new rules this year. I don't think Notre Dame changes a thing. I really don't. Now, you can look at scheduling, which is hard, and, how are they going to schedule out? They've scheduled some pretty good teams. It's kind of the meat of their schedule that brings down that strength of schedule, if you will. The Stanfords of the world, right? Some of those different games. If I'm Notre Dame, though, independents, there is just no way they're going to look at anything different other than we were in the championship game a year ago. We'll be back at it next year.
Yes, I know conference affiliation, but how do you, when we're expanding, okay, and then you're going to add more automatic qualifiers when you do expand, because that's basically the contingency that expansion relies on, is that Notre Dame would have to get in as an at-large. Do you think there's a situation where they have some sort of negotiation that if they're ranked in the top,
probably, yeah,
whatever, they get in over another at-large option?
Yeah, and they've got kind of the sort of pseudo partnership with the ACC. So maybe the ACC, you could sidecar them with that. That's a fair point, right? But if you're also expanding the playoff, Notre Dame is good enough and established enough, you would think that if it's the top 16, more times than not, they think they're going to be able to be in that mix. Right? Yeah. It is still shocking to, and head to head, so maybe it shouldn't be. But how we got to that decision is still, like, the committee actually did it. And trying to sort through the narrative throughout the week, I wasn't sure if they were going to be able to do it. And
I think it's the weirdest thing that they waited until today to do it, though.
Well, I don't understand.
When neither of those teams were playing.
Yeah, the team between them thing is illogical. It is illogical. It's hard for me to understand the logic that, well, now that BYU, and I'll go back to this, like, having human beings do this, this conversation has been raging for weeks. I'm not saying the committee caved. Maybe they came to their senses, however you want to label it. Something happened, and it'll be interesting to see what they have to say about this to alter a significant move.
Yeah. There's going to be, by the way, that happens in January after the national championship, so we will actually get some information on what the college football playoff will look like next year. It will look different, but this is what we are set with for now.
If you were going to pick someone to come out of this, I'll put you on the spot. Is it Indiana?
Yeah. I would honestly, I think Indiana and Texas Tech have the best path here.
I might stick with Ohio State. I did it last year. I was
Fair,
stubborn.
Yes.
And Georgia, we haven't talked about enough. I think Georgia's a team that clearly is finding its way at the right time. You could argue no one's playing better than Georgia right now.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. You can. And we said, like, they're going to get the credit for playing in the conference they do, for playing the teams they've had to play. They've been excellent. I think Georgia certainly has a chance. But if I'm being honest, I do genuinely think that Indiana and Ohio State probably have the best chance, and then Texas Tech is right there behind them. I think Texas Tech is way better than people are giving them credit for.
I am really excited to see what a rejuvenated Miami team
Yeah, this opportunity, you have
up.
to think that that factors in. Like, much as we were talking about how Dan Lanning's really great at, hyping up his locker room, do you think Cristobal is just like using this as like the ultimate fuel of like, we got in and now we have to prove it? Like, everyone's going to want us. It's going to be us against everybody because people are going to be saying we're the ones who shouldn't have gotten in.
They've been chasing this thing down for months, right? And I'll say, I thought the season was dead. I thought with SMU, that was it.
Yeah.
We've been very critical of Mario Cristobal at times for a pretty good reason, because there's just some things in game that have given us reason to criticize. What I cannot be critical about is the way he's built this roster. Obviously, working with Nick Saban, the economics at Miami, which are favorable to him, like, they have some dudes. Yeah. Offensive line, defensive line, quarterback, wide receiver, obviously electric. So they've done it with recruiting and they've done it with the portal. I think they're a huge threat. But they just needed a shot, right? They just needed a shot to get in. Now they've got a shot. Traveling, though, to Texas A&M, that's a tough consolation.
There's no environment like that in the ACC. Apologize to
but you know what?
The ACC
like
fans,
they're
but
thrilled.
Texas A&M is going to be.
They're thrilled to have that opportunity.
Yeah, they're up for it. We did talk about Ole Miss a little bit, but do you think there's any chance that this is just too much?
No, I don't think this game will be too much. I think they'll be a significant favorite in this game. I think they've got the quarterback, and again, kind of beating a dead horse, but the coordinators, much of the staff staying intact. I know in Lane Kiffin's departure, it was the question of poaching and what's the coaching staff going to look like. Offensively, defensively, play calling is going to feel familiar. So I think that will be comforting, and they've had some time to get ready too, which will help. They've also played this opponent. Like, there's a lot of things I think working in Ole Miss's favor.
In their favor. Well, we have the pleasure of being joined by the Big 12 champion head coach, Joey McGuire. Thank you so much for taking the time. And how has the last 24 hours been for you and your team?
Thanks for having me. It's been incredible. Man, you could say that a couple more times, the Big 12 champs. I just feel so good.
Joey, when did you know that this team could be as special as it ultimately was?
Honestly, in January when we started getting these guys together, and we had a good returning core with like a Baron Morton, and Jacob Rodriguez decided not to declare and decided to come back. And then we added such great people. Like we added some dudes. I mean, just some flat out dudes. But they're such good people. And so whenever we started building this team and we could feel that they were going to really connect, I was like, man, watch out. Don't let the Red Raiders get hot.
And you guys certainly have been hot. The conversation around your team mostly is about dollar signs and transfer portal and all of those things. But can you speak to maybe what you view it as and how you've seen this benefit, and what you would want people to know about your team that maybe isn't about any of those things that kind of makes a difference and gotten you guys here?
Well, I want to start. Last night, one of the reporters asked, I had Jacob Rodriguez, Ben Roberts, and John Curry up on stage with me in the press conference, and one of the reporters kind of asked the same question, and Jacob Rodriguez said, well, if you're going to pay people, pay the right people. And, everybody in college football is doing what we're doing. We just chose to do it at a really high level. But what people don't understand is how close this team is. I've been doing this for 31 years, and this is the closest team I've ever been a part of. They truly care about each other, and you can see it every day in this building.
So we got to watch your team celebrate, which we kind of joked wasn't much of a celebration. Like, hey, congratulations, like you mentioned, like historically great year for your program. However, going now into like a bye, there's like some awkwardness with the timeline and trying to manage that. Have you looked at the calendar and what the practice schedules will look like? What will you do differently here with a little bit of a break?
Yeah, we actually, the coordinators are meeting right now as we speak, and then we'll meet again in the morning. The tough thing is balancing. We need the bye. Like, if we played next week, we would have everybody that played yesterday, but having that bye gives us a chance to really get healthy. And so It doesn't make any sense to go out on Tuesday and have our normal practice and bang on each other if we need to get healthy. And so, this week we're in finals week, so that helps out the schedule a little bit. We got to finish everything out academically. And this team's special academically too, man. I've got a lot of college graduates and guys with really high GPAs. So we'll lift and run and finish off the academic part. The next thing is, where can I give them a little bit of time, to go home for Christmas? Lee Hunter, before the game, he was like, "Coach, I hear there's a rumor that we could go home for Christmas if we win the game." And he goes, that means I would get to see my daughter. And I said, "Yes, sir. If we win this game, we get a bye. You'll get to see your daughter." And he goes, "Coach, you shouldn't have told me that. They're in trouble." And man, I was like, "Oh man, this is awesome," because he's already hard enough to block as it is.
Yeah.
But giving him a little extra advantage or incentive was a big deal.
Now, we do know that another Big 12 team was left out of this in the team you played last night. Can you speak to maybe the toughness of the conference and maybe where you wish the committee might have given you guys and them a little bit more credit in terms of conference toughness?
Yeah, I'm frustrated for my good friend Kalani, because I think that he should have been in. I know that he was the second team out. When you look at it, they lost to one team, and that's the number 4 ranked team in the country. And both of them almost were like, they lost in Lubbock, and then it was probably 70-30 on a 85,000 people. So it was almost like a home game for us yesterday. And they're a really good football team. Whenever you put their numbers up, where strength of schedule and all the stuff that everybody's comparing, they're right there with Miami and Notre Dame and, anybody else. I wouldn't have wanted to be on that committee, because, man, this was a really strange year. It's already nothing, no disrespect to any group of 5 school, but it's already, hard enough to compare getting them in, much less getting 2 in, and having some really good teams left out.
On that note, Coach, do you have a preference there's a lot of talk about where we go from here with the format, with the teams, with the committee. Do you have a preference or just any kind of guiding thoughts here as they sort of get together and hopefully figure out what's next?
Yeah, I thought Kalani and John Gruden actually had the exact same thing to solve some of this, and that is everybody should have played yesterday that had a possibility to get into the 12. Meaning, if you want to argue Miami over Notre Dame, they should have had to play yesterday. If you got an opportunity to be in it, then match up some teams against each other, because you're already playing conference games and you've got teams that are playing that 13th game. So let's just let everybody. I mean, it'd be great for TV. It'd be great for, fans. And I think they have a really good idea with that. I'm of the idea, though, we've got a lot of changes that we need to make in our calendar for our student athletes. I think it's crazy that we're going to play a national championship in January 19th in the second semester of college. I mean, college football is supposed to be played in the first semester, not the second semester. So there's a lot of things that we've got to change. But when it comes to this, if you're going to have conference championship games, then the teams that are right there on the bubble should have to play each other, and that solves it on the field of who's getting into the playoffs.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time. We'll let you get to your coordinators in that meeting, but thank you for hanging out with us.
Man, thank y'all so much. Y'all are incredible. I love what you do, and a huge fan.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Well,
they're getting ready.
They are. They're hyped up. And that's the point I was trying to make all year. You and I had this conversation. I said, I think people are getting this idea that you just throw money at a team and they can be in the national championship conversation and in the college football playoff. That's not how it works. When he talks about some of the players that he has on his roster, it's about getting the right guys, plugging in holes you need. It's not just going in and getting a bunch of guys in the transfer portal and throwing all kinds of money at them. It's getting guys who are going to stay and the opportunity to stay and build with other teammates. I think this is a very special team, and you could kind of sense it from the offseason on. And to his point, he knew in January. So we're going to see how well it pays off.
They are loaded. And it's really interesting that normally we start this conversation with quarterbacks. Fernando Mendoza, Julian Sain. We're talking about his defensive line, right? His starting quarterback has been a little bit of an afterthought. He's had to use a backup quarterback, too, to win football games. So the sky's the limit for them. They can absolutely win everything in front of them, and I'm excited to see what happens next.
Yeah. Baron Morton definitely deserves more credit than he has been given over the last season. I know he's dealt with some injuries, but I do think this Texas Tech team will really have an opportunity to announce themselves on the scene. But yeah, dealing with that bye week or that bye time feels tough because we know last year it didn't really benefit a lot of people. But to his point, like it could benefit some guys get to go home, see their families.
It's an awkward time of the calendar.
It is.
Right, it really is. You got the portal getting ready to like open up. You've got coaches trying to evaluate who's going to be ready. It's a really busy time for these guys, even with some of the changes that have been made.
Yeah, no, it is crazy, but I do think Texas Tech has a really great chance to be in the national championship game. Any other matchups, teams you feel like we did not get to or talk about properly?
You know, Group of Five in general, right?
Yes.
I think these are like legendary moments for these programs. And whether you think they belong or not, in whatever format this is like congratulations to James Madison and Tulane.
Yeah.
Right? You've got coaching changes. There's a lot of other variables and things going on with them right now. I'm happy for them. At the same point, if you're a Notre Dame or a BYU or a Texas or Vanderbilt, you feel bad. These are teams that had legitimate cases. I think more so than any year. I think the bubble was a legitimate bubble.
Yeah.
And I think the outcome of this is going to completely reshape what this looks like moving forward. I think this year is going to be as disruptive to the format as any year we've ever seen.
Yeah, and I will say I do like Coach McGuire's idea of having teams play, whether it's if you're a bubble team, so say they put out Tuesday's rankings.
Yeah.
They'd probably have to do it a little sooner.
Yep.
And give teams time to prep for the other team. But imagine if you were on the bubble and then they had head-to-head matchups to get in.
More football.
Yeah, more meaningful football.
Well, it's a playoff then, right? Like, truly, the playoff starts early. I like it too. And if you want to decide this, decide it on the field. That's metaphorically perfect considering what we saw with Miami and Notre Dame.
Yeah, I was just going to say, the committee did, in fact, stick to that being the most important. And I feel like that would be, and I mean, everybody we see this every week when we do these shows in the chat. Someone will say, oh, this team's going to blow out that team, but they never play each other, so you don't really actually know that until you see it happen.
For sure.
I think that's a great way to move forward.
Yeah, I love the idea. It's probably too bold for the sport to adopt so fast. That's the other thing. They got to move. Like, we don't know what this is going to be next season. That's pretty wild to me.
We have no idea, which is nuts. We've been doing this for the last couple of years, I feel like, though, sort of waiting to see what's happening. Also, the chat with -3 yards is really funny to me. It just keeps bringing it up.
Yep.
Love that. But to your point, I do think bubble teams, also expanding this would be amazing.
Imagine this year with a 16 team, regardless of format. You'd probably have some more guaranteed spots in the SEC,
I was just going to say the automatic qualifiers.
So you'd have BYU in, Notre Dame would be in, Texas would be in, and then you're always going to have a bubble, right? So whether it's Utah, USC, Arizona, like the conversation's not going to go away.
Yeah.
But it becomes different when you have teams with 3 losses and 4 losses. But no matter how they expand, I think it's critical we find a more transparent and deliberate process that people can really understand.
Yeah.
That's part of it. No matter what you do, if the committee is going to factor into this, and it probably will, there's, I think, got to be more transparency in why they're doing certain things.
Yeah, I mean, this year there was an attempt at transparency with the idea that strength of record and strength of resume would factor into this. They were going to use those specific metrics to factor that in. That was going to have to be something that played a part. But we didn't see them tell us exactly. I mean, not yet. We haven't heard whether or not that was factored in and how it affected certain teams, because I think BYU is one you could point to.
Yeah, and no matter what they say, they're going to be able to step on themselves along the way.
Yes.
Okay, head-to-head's going to matter. Strength of schedule is going to matter. There's no perfect way to do this.
Yeah.
The BCS was a faceless mechanism to crown a champion. We could get mad at a computer formula, but there was something a little bit more simpler about that. Not two teams, but which would have been fascinating this year, by the way, but the way that we got to those teams.
Yeah, no, it's true. And the change is just going to keep happening. We will see what they are and how it ends up. We will know in a couple weeks. Do you think, though, that we get some stability in this after this next version of it? Do you think the initial 12-team expansion was a good tester for what the future will look like for the foreseeable future? I believe it has to stay the same. I mean, anything is possible in college football. You know, it can change, but I believe it'll be the same for the next 6 years after this.
Yeah.
So I do think we'll probably get it right with the next one. But like to your point, there's always going to be bubble teams. There's always going to be a conversation, but there's going to be a lot of different rules that I think we're not really even considering right now.
Well, we've talked about also just skipping over 16 and going to 24. Right? Like that has been mentioned before. So do we do that?
What, 24? Yeah, I mean.
No, I think we land at 16. I think people out there are going to say, well, more games, more money. No, I think 16 is it the right number? There's flaws in everything. You're obviously making it more attainable for teams.
Yeah.
But I think that's good. In the era of NIL, the discrepancy between the team with the best recruiting rankings and the number 25 team, it's so much smaller.
Yes.
You're giving teams hope. You're giving a Texas Tech reason to spend. You're giving other teams reason to commit to NIL. USC had the number 1 recruiting class this year, an SEC-dominated exercise. That's a good thing, I think, for overall just parity in college football.
I think we're also seeing, because of NIL, transfer portal, which all of those things definitely need to be remedied. I will mention the transfer portal is changing to one window in the, I guess it's spring, it's in January, but it's quote spring. But I think that the gap between a lot of these teams are changing. Certainly you have the more dominant teams in the Ohio States and what we've seen now, Indiana, those type of teams. But I think it's easier to build a roster now, build a team that can compete with the Big Ten in the SEC, in the ACC, and the ACC is probably a bad example, in the Big 12. We'll use the Big 12 as the example. I think it is definitely more attainable to get there in terms of you're able to use NIL portal to get your team in that situation in a shorter amount of time. I mean, even look at Indiana, a place like Indiana, and they're able to do it. And sure, they play in the Big Ten, and sure, it's good coaching and all those things has to come with it. But it's certainly possible.
You have a shot now.
Yeah.
Teams that didn't have a shot now. And so if you're in the, off the rankings or anything else, looking at recruiting, you got to feel pretty good about the future because there's a cap on NIL. There are some limitations. But beyond that, I think the door is open for teams to step up and make a move.
Yeah. No, it'll be very exciting. I know you and I will both maybe be looking at what we can contribute to Iowa and Arizona, respectively, to move up their chances, both ranked in the top 25 here. I am a bit shocked about the North Texas thing. I mean, I get it, but at the same time, I am pretty shocked that they didn't put
Conference championship outcomes mattered.
Yes.
To BYU. Right?
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Right? And then otherwise
it doesn't matter.
It really didn't matter.
Unless
and
you're the
that
Big 12.
part is where we need some more help. But, look, this is a team that basically played in a playoff game, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, turned the ball over 5 times. Best offense in college football. Ultimately, turned the ball over 5 times. You know what's going to happen. Still wasn't a blowout, but a really good team and a really good season.
Yes. Credit to them for being in the conversation.
Yes.
Are there any teams that you think will be in this conversation come next year? Maybe not group of 5 teams, but any teams outside of, do you think Texas will be in a situation? Obviously, the focus will turn to what they do over,
Yeah.
Is Arch still their guy? Yeah. I would assume yes.
Yeah, what happens with Jeremiah Love?
Yeah,
CJ
Vanderbilt.
Carr, BYU's got Bear Bachmeier. Vandy's getting 5-star quarterbacks now, right?
Yeah.
So the world has changed a little bit. I still believe, however, with this era of NIL, the teams, in Indiana's going to have big changes also. So Ohio State, Julian Sand, Jeremiah Smith, huge recruiting class coming in, right? I mean, I was listening to Texas Tech folks talk yesterday about the analytics saying Texas Tech could be better next year. Do we buy that? I don't know, but that's a scary thought to think about.
the analytics.
Yeah, it's a brave new world.
we used analytics
Yeah.
to do this bracket, correct? Didn't we?
Yes.
That and automatic qualifiers. Yeah, I think there's plenty. I mean, Oregon's going to continue to be a power. I know they're in the bracket, but I think there's going to be teams that continue. Ole Miss, what they do going forward.
What does life look like for Ole Miss? What
Post-lane.
does Alabama look like? Does Ty Simpson come back? Right? Miami, where do they continue to spend? Because they've been a big spender in this. Lot of
Michigan.
questions. The transfer portal coming a little bit later changes the game for us some. So we don't know what it's going to look like. We know that the teams are going to be drastically different than they are right now.
Yeah, I am thankful. I mean, mostly the portal being delayed a little bit impacts. One, I think it gives. We had early National Signing Day during championship week, which is wild that we had that. It feels like that was 10 years ago and it was this week.
Yeah.
And we have coaches being named to their future programs, so that is making it a little bit easier. Just to remind everyone, the college football transfer portal used to open basically now. And that made it really hard over the next couple of weeks for people to build out their roster, especially those that are in the college football playoff. And so it is delayed to January now, which will make things easier. Give people time to make their decisions and not feel so rushed. I know we saw last year Bo Privula had to make a decision before his team was in the college football playoff and to transfer and do all those things. It definitely does, help when there's a little bit of a delay. Is it the perfect solution? I don't think so. I think it's a Band-Aid to what we have going on right now in college football, but
I would agree.
Worth it. Worth the adjustment to make it easier, especially for those coaching still, and then for teams who are setting up their coaching staff, sort of getting their bearings and hiring their coordinators.
Yeah, I think the transfer portal is going to be key to this. Moving it back was obviously critical. How do coaches use that now? You've got players on teams that are leaving, right? So what's the mentality in the locker rooms there? There's still a lot to figure out.
Yeah. All right, well, let's make some predictions, Adam, because I know the people love a good prediction situation. Let's start by picking the winner of the first round games. We'll try and come to a mutual agreement so we can pick those games. Let's start with the 12-5. I think we're both going to go Oregon.
Oregon is it.
Okay, Oregon is in.
So no debate here. No shade to James Madison, but Oregon is the way we're going.
Okay, so we've got Oregon in. Then we will do Alabama, Oklahoma. Buddy, oh.
How do we feel about Alabama?
After last night?
Yeah, how do we feel? I don't feel great.
No, and the narrative around it's hard to beat the same team twice. I don't know. I think Brent Venables' defense is really.
I'm going to go Alabama. What do you think here?
I was leaning Oklahoma.
All right, let's go Oklahoma. Fine. Oklahoma it is.
All right, Tulane, Ole Miss.
Ole Miss.
Ole Miss. Okay.
Any thoughts on Tulane?
That's going to be Ole Miss.
Okay.
Miami, Texas A&M.
I still kind of like Texas A&M.
Me too. So we'll put Texas
But
A&M.
what do you think that point spread's going to be? You know we love point spreads. What do you think it's going to be?
3.5. Texas A&M home. Do you think they're going to give them a full touchdown?
No. I think it'll be 3.5, 4.5 seems like a really good number.
Yeah.
3.5, 4.5 seems like a really good number. Again, this was the team du jour all season long.
Yeah.
It felt like, right? Playing in close games. I mean, they had some really, really great moments. The win over Notre Dame, which felt like a lifetime ago.
It was.
Right? So, I mean, great overall resume, some close calls there. So I think they have to now justify it a little bit.
Yeah. They do. They have to prove it. All right, well, let's pick the next round of games since we moved on some of them. I think the first one will be Oregon, Texas Tech.
Oof. I'm going to take Texas Tech.
I'm going to take Texas Tech too. Wow, look at us.
I'm going to take Texas Tech.
Okay, Indiana, Oklahoma.
I like Indiana a lot.
I like Indiana. Yep.
I like Indiana a lot.
And then we have Ole Miss, Georgia.
I think Georgia's just playing so well right now. It would be hard for me to pick against them.
I agree. I would pick Georgia as well. And then we have Texas A&M, Ohio State. Wow, what a game.
Ohio State.
Though.
Ohio State still feels really good.
All right. Quickly, Ohio State, Georgia.
Oh,
wow.
God.
Do you realize we just picked all the top seeds?
Yeah, but are you surprised? I mean, these are some elite football teams.
What?
I'm going to take reluctantly Ohio State.
Okay. And then an Indiana, Texas Tech situation.
Indiana.
Yeah.
Rematch time.
You think the national championship will be Indiana and Ohio State?
I do. I think we're
Is that a
heading in.
prop bet? It's somewhere?
Yeah, it's got to be. Yeah, no, for sure. We'll definitely have bets of what the matchups will be. I mean that bottom quadrant to me, I just can't get enough of in terms of Miami, Texas A&M, Georgia, Ohio State. It's going to be battle tested. So, but Indiana, Ohio State is a rematch. You think people would sign up for that?
Yeah. I mean, it was a good game.
All right, I'm in.
You
Ohio
worry,
State win.
You worry that the people aren't going to watch a meaningful game?
No, Ohio State's going to win.
Okay. You think they're going to win another national championship?
I do. And then Ryan Day will be regarded as the best coach in college football, and Kurt Cignetti will still be, producing winning teams.
Okay. Bold predictions. You heard him here first. This is crazy.
I know. Look at these 2 seasons.
And the Big Ten will continue their streak of winning national championships.
Yes. The strength of schedule, obviously, is going to remain the knock that people have. I get it. I understand it. It's been the conversation all year long. But when you look at the best wins, right?
Yeah.
Forgot about the Illinois win, which was a good one. Michigan, of course, they finally slayed the dragon, even if it started off a little rough.
Yeah.
These were great seasons.
Yeah. Incredible seasons, and we're still not done.
Yeah.
Someone did write the best 12 teams are not in the college football playoff. What? I think we're starting to realize that, again, we've talked about this a lot now. We will get there. We will get the best teams in.
I don't know if we will.
Deserving.
Group of 5 is going to be a thing no matter what.
Yeah.
So I think that you'll get a wider net. So you get more teams that probably have a say, I think, more regularly than you do right now.
Yeah.
That would be my guess.
This is exciting. I'm ready for the games to start now.
Yeah.
I want it to be, now that we officially have this bracket, is it crazy to look at this after we spent the last 15 weeks dissecting how this would turn out?
Well, the other thing I'm looking at now is teams with momentum versus teams that don't. Alabama and Oklahoma, both of these teams are reeling a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. So they got some things that they need to figure out.
Yeah. The committee also, do you think that there's a change in who the committee is made of at all, or how many people are on it, or do you think there's any big change to that?
No, I think they have their
We don't
flow.
go back to computers?
I'd love to go back to computers, but I don't think it's going to happen. I really don't.
All right. Well, now we are joined by Big 12 champion Ben Roberts. Hello. Thank you for joining us. How's the last 24 hours been for you?
They've been great. It's a lot of traveling last night, but getting to hang out with the guys after the game and celebrate, it's been awesome.
So what did that look like? The game is over. You guys now kind of know more or less what your fate is. What are the emotions that go into that? And what did it feel like to finally have it kind of culminate in the way that it did?
It was amazing. It's one of those things that when I got to college, that's always been the goal, but now we're in the place that we can achieve that. And I'm here with the guys that I love to do this with. And I can't wait to see how far we go.
Can you speak a little to the closeness of your team? Because I think a lot has been talked about in terms of price tag and all of that, but we know there's a stash crew and all of that. I need to know, what is it like to sort of be in that locker room and sort of this special experience you guys are all kind of going on together?
It's unreal. It's something I've never been a part of before. The guys in the locker room, I feel like I've known them my whole life. Personally, I'd take a bullet for any of them. They came in with the same expectations that we had before they even got here. We knew who they were, especially being a guy that's been a part of this team from the beginning. It's cool to see guys come in and be completely bought in and not just here for a check or anything.
What about the personality of your head coach? We talked to him for a while. It seems like a really fun guy to play for. Obviously, with his roots in the state of Texas, what is it like to play for him? And you talk about the personality of the team. How much is he a part of that?
He is the reason for all of it because he's the same guy every day. He says it. People on the team will say it, and even if you just see it in person or any of his interviews, but he comes up. He's got the highest level of energy you can have, and he's here to develop players. He wants us to grow as men and as football players, and to be successful in every aspect of your life. And that's the best thing about Coach McGuire.
Have you guys gotten any idea of what your schedule looks like? Obviously, having a bye and all of that. I'm sure there's a lot that you guys want to know. And staying focused, a big part of this. What do the next couple of days and weeks look like for you guys?
I know that this week we're probably not going to put on the pads just so we can get our bodies back healthy. But this bye is massive for us just to get healthy in that way. But I know the coaches are talking about the schedule today, so we don't know exactly what the plan is. But I know the plan is to maybe be able to see some family for Christmas. So I'm excited about that.
Yes, well, that will be big. And we wish you all the best of luck in the college football playoff. And congratulations on the Big 12 championship.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, Adam,
Yes.
we got to finally reveal the bracket.
Yes.
We got to talk to some Texas Tech coach and player.
Yes.
What a year it's been, and it's not even over.
No.
Any other bold predictions you want to make besides Ohio State repeating?
No, I think the format is changing. That's my bold prediction.
Yeah.
Is the playoff we saw this year is going to go away. And the people, if you're mad, if you're happy, whatever emotion you're feeling, that's going to be felt in a new and improved, maybe improved, college football playoff that's going to look very different than what we have today.
Yes. Well, we appreciate you guys hanging out. Chat, you are the best. We love you. We love that you guys are engaged. For Adam Kramer and Paige Mendonca, we appreciate you guys hanging out. Enjoy the college football playoff games.